Thank you, Francis. Governor, thank you for stopping by after your speech. Before I get to your speech, though, the President Donald Trump just announced a 2-week delay in sending out ICE to apprehend those that he deems illegal immigrants. What is your reaction to this 2-week delay? And he's saying that he hopes that in the 2 weeks that the Democrats and Republicans can come up with a plan that's agreeable to both around deportation and around asylum at those that are at the border that are seeking asylum.
Well, certainly President Trump has learned that the more often he changes his mind about things that matter, the more attention he gets. So I'm naturally a little bit suspicious that this is another attempt to create commotion and change his mind back and forth so he gets in he's on TV. Every cable channel is going to be carrying this decision. They're going to talk to all the Democrats about what about Trump this, what about Trump that. You know, I'm glad I appreciate the 2 weeks. I think to expand and accelerate ICE raids it's a form of really taking people that are going through the worst experience of their lives and really making their lives worse than they are.
And this is after he had frightened everyone to death who possibly could have been even mistakenly taken as an illegal immigrant. It's like 1 minute he's going to do what he's going to do in Iran about the drone being shot down, then he pulls back. Here we have twice in 1 week a delay. So it makes one wonder, is this not just for grabbing the news cycle?
Well, again, I'm glad for the 2-week reprieve,
right,
but hopefully it'll be a longer reprieve than that, but I'm very suspicious. I mean, he's just shown again and again, if it gets him more attention, more time on TV, he'll do pretty much anything.
Now, you were well received here today. You stood up as one who is governed, and you have said that I think it's a mistake if we identify ourselves in the party, talking to Democrats as socialists. I asked Senator Sanders about that. He defended what he would call or define as socialism. And you had a few people that was not pleased with you saying that in California. You kind of stood up to him. You didn't seem too bothered by that. Why is that an important point for you to make, even though you know it is unpopular in certain segments of the progressive Democratic community?
At first, I respect Senator Sanders. I mean, he's provided great clarity around some of the most important issues that are facing this country, so he deserves credit for that. But I don't think big expansions of government are the way to get solutions done. You know, while I was governor in Colorado, we brought business and nonprofits together, Republicans and Democrats. We became the #1 economy in the country. We got to near universal health care coverage. We beat the NRA with some tough new gun laws. I mean, we did these big progressive things that people said couldn't be done, and we didn't have to go towards socialism. And I think, you know, the Republicans are going to come after us. They're going to call us socialists no matter what we do. We better be very clear that we are not socialists.
Now, you also raised in your speech here today around what you did actually about police brutality and police misconduct in Colorado, which got you a pretty loud applause here from this crowd.
Yeah, when I first got elected, actually before I was inaugurated, a young 15-year-old black teenager named Paul Childs was developmental disability, but he was in his own home. And an inexperienced police officer shot him in his own front hall. So we worked with the pastors and the reverends in Denver and other parties, and we really we created an independent office of the Monitor to investigate any allegations of police misconduct or brutality and had that outside the protection of the mayor's office. We created a civilian oversight commission so that the community could have a loud voice in how their neighborhoods were policed. And finally, we changed what we called the discipline matrix, so we didn't just have to slap rogue police officers on the wrist. We could really respond and give them penalties that match their misconduct.
You are less than a week away from the debates. Are you going to take on this socialism tag or socialism title that they are bestowing upon the Democrats?
Well, you bet I am. I mean, we are not socialists. If you look at almost all the Democrats up there, we're looking at, we really care about climate change. Climate change is one of the most important things we're facing in this country. But in the Green New Deal, there's a there's a promise that any American who wants it gets a government job. That's not going to get out of Congress. It's going to be a distraction. We've got to be laser focused if we're going to really succeed against climate change. And it's not going to include big government expansions. It's going to take that focus to say, how do we get rid of methane, like we did in Colorado? We got the oil and gas industry to sit down with the environmental community, and we created the first methane regulations in the country. How are we going to get rid of, close those coal plants that are still open and still producing, generating electricity? We got to replace them with wind, with solar, and batteries. No more natural gas. And these are all things that, these aren't giant expansions of government. These are things we got to do fast, tomorrow.
All right, Governor Hickenlooper, thank you so much for being with us.
It's great to see you.
All right.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.